Hello, it's Leslie Rogowski here with another Facebook Live for TheBeadSmith. I love beads, woohoo! We'll give a few people a chance to join us to watch how easy it is to make my Astra earrings, my hoop earrings. So I see Lila and Letitia. Hi you guys, thanks for joining me. Sorry about the last time. I was definitely having tech issues. Couldn't get online. That was a problem. Hi Kath. Glad you could join us too. Alright, again, we're just gonna wait a little bit give people a chance to come in. You guys can all hear me, right? Someone just type yes in the comments. I assume everybody can hear me. Hey, Judy. Thanks, Kathy. All right, these were really fun, this earring to make. Thanks, Judy. Ta-da! You can see I just went nuts. Making more and more. They're just really fun. Now these, you can see I have the ear wire on one of them, but not on the other. So, how's everybody? Everybody doing okay? There's been a little bit of excitement in our country with election days and all that. But let's talk about beads because they're way more fun. So you can see when I have these in my hands about the scale of them. They're really, really lightweight. Anyway, here we go. These are my Astra earrings. These are some varieties. I'm going to take these away and talk to you about materials. Everything's sticking. There we go. All right, I am here with my pal and partner in crime, Leslie Pope. Hi, Les. And we are Team Leslie. So, for the Astra earrings, here's my little sample. You're going to need size 11 seed beads, not delicates, regular round seed beads. You can see over here. Then we have Superduos, size 8 seed beads. A little dangle is optional, but I put them in little charms. I have these little tear cast charms there. We have 6mm open jump rings, a pair of ear wires, and of course our hoops. Now these hoop earrings are very fun to work with because there's a lot of ways that they can be used. First of all, I want you to look carefully at the side of what we call the housing that's facing up here. You can see there's a loop at the top, that's where the ear wire is going to go. And there's a loop in the middle, and that's where, if you want to, you can attach with jump rings or pieces of chain a little dangle for the center of these. Now these actually open. I'm going to turn it over and show you on the back. There's two little tubes that the wire actually goes into. One of the tubes is already crimped and the other one is not. So there are ways, it just pulls out like this. So there are ways to use these hoop earrings. These are 30mm hoops. They come in smaller and larger sizes. But what we're going to do for the Astra earrings, because we do not want to take these apart, and I'm going to stick this right back in there. Before we do anything, you're going to take a flat nose, chain nose, or bent nose pliers, and you're going to squash down where the wire goes into the housing on both sides to make sure that it's secured. So now you'd really have to pull it hard. All right, you got that? I want to make sure everybody knows that at the very beginning of the chat window for this Facebook Live is the link to the free tutorial in I Love Beads. It is, if you go into I Love Beads, under the Superduo category, and you'll find the whole illustrated tutorial there. Gives you materials, gives you text, and big, giant, these are the only illustrations you need. So we're going to get to it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is move our sample out of the way. And I'm going to show you how to start on your hoop. This is kind of a version of brick stitch that we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is use our 8s and sew all the way around the hoop. Doesn't matter which way you hold this at all. It depends on your stitching orientation. Now I am using actually Wildfire because I wanted the color to show. That's an added design element here. It's going to show, because the thread shows on the hoop, it just really works to add a little bit of an extra color detail. So something to think about, that you can use any kind of a firm beading thread. Nymo D works fine as well, but one caveat to that. It's kind of easy when you sew back through beads, like we're going to be doing here, to pierce Nymo with your needle. So I like to use the synthetic threads like Fireline or Wildfire because it's very hard to pierce the thread when you go back. So that makes your life a lot easier. All right, so we're going to start this way. When you start any kind of a brick stitch, you usually start with 2 beads. So the first thing I'm going to do is tie one end onto the hoop just with a half hitch. Whoops. And I'm going to leave myself like a 4 or 5 inch tail here because we're going to work with this later to sew it back in. So there's a square knot. I did a half hitch and I'm going to do another half hitch, so that's on there. And just keep pushing this out of the way until later when we sew it in. So I'm going to pick up, I kind of hold that in my hand just to keep it out of the way. Since I'm using 11s and 8s as my seed beads, I'm going to use a size 11 needle or a 12 needle rather than a 10, which is larger, because you're going to go through the beads a couple times. So you want a relatively thin needle to be able to do this. All right, I'm going to pick up 2 beads. Now I want you to watch to see how I hold this. I'm going to slide my needle under the hoop and hold it against the hoop so that my beads stay there in position like this. So my thread has gone underneath, and now I'm going to come back up through the second bead. And you can see that my 8s are sitting flat, like little flat tires or donuts, if you would. And we're going to do this all the way around, working with 1 bead from now on. You only use 2 when you're starting with brick stitch. So I'll do a couple more. I'm going to pick up 1, and again, I'm going under my hoop with my needle, holding the needle against the hoop and putting my thumb there so the bead stays in place. Whoops. You can see it's a little fiddly, but so I have that bead there. Then I'm going to come up through the bead, and again, make sure your thread is looping around the hoop, and you're going to come back up through that bead like this. And you're going to want to bring this pretty close to the housing. We're going to add enough beads around I'm just checking my notes to make sure. I think it's 29 beads altogether, but it tells you in the instructions. So we're going to do this brick stitch, the size 8s, all the way around to the end. And we're going to end up with something that looks like this. Here's my tail from the beginning. And here I am coming out of my last bead. Last size 8 bead, I should say. My thread's all tangled. Hang on just a second. I do not want to knot this. So I took my needle off so I can unknot my thread. Nothing ever goes right, does it? There we go. Okay. Oh, you also want to have, as a tool, a scissors and a thread zap. My retractable thread zap. There you go. All right, let's thread the needle. This is always a good chance to show you my needle threading trick. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to flatten the end of my thread because your needle eye is a slot and your thread is round. So you want a flat piece. You're going to pull your thread till you can barely see it, like a poppy seed, and you're going to bring the needle to the thread and push it through. Okay. So here we are. The next step is to work back around the hoop, and we're going to add the silver 11s and the Superduo rays of Astra starlight coming out from them in the next pass through. So you can see that I don't have spokes coming all the way out. They tend to fold. You can try it if you'd like. It needs very firm tension, but I just am going to have 6 just 11s, and then I'm going to add my Superduos and my 8s with more 11s. Here we go. First I pick up an 11. Now I'm going to go down into the next 8, and I go behind my hoop because it's easy for me without having to look to go through the size 8, and I can see my needle coming out on the side. So there's the 11. Now I'm coming back out the 11 that I just went in, and I'm going to keep my needle in front of the hoop, and careful so I don't pierce the thread, I'm going to bring my needle out through that second 8 and pull it snug, and you can see that the 11 sits like kind of bridging the gap between the 2 size 8s that are there. And I'm going to repeat this for 6 11s until I start my Superduos. So again, I'm going out the second 8 into the third 8, coming under the hoop, pulling my thread, then keeping my needle over the hoop. I'm going to go back through the 8. All right, I don't see any questions in the chat, so I guess we're doing okay. All right, and I'm going to do this, kind of pick up speed a little bit so we can get to the Superduo part. You can just see how those beads sit right across the space between the 8s. 1, 2, 3. I missed my bead. Okay, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know some folks are already getting snow, which is just so hard to believe. I'm in Philadelphia, you may recall, with the other Leslie, And we were in t-shirts a couple days ago, and now we're sitting with our hoodies on. It's insane. All right, 1, 2, make sure your bead sits where it's supposed to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Come back out in front. And you can see again how the red thread around the hoop just adds that nice little extra detail of color. Okay. And because you're coming through it twice, you did it the first time with the 8s, and now you're going to do it with, whoops, I went through the wrong bead. Always take your needle off your thread. When you have to undo something, do not go back through the bead point first. You will regret it. I need to flatten my thread again. I wish I could remember this, whoever told me this tip, but man, needle the thread, don't thread the needle. Poppy seed. Sometimes this thread will get soft and you may have to trim it a little bit to get it back on there. There we go. All right, we're going to put the 611 on. Go in the next one. And then come back out the one that you just sewed through. And now you have your 6. Okay, so now we're going to start adding these here. So we have the Superduos. So I have 6 11s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I'm going to pick up a Superduo. And by the way, you always check both holes of any multi-hole beads before you sew them. So usually when I pick it up, I'll just look through it and you can see that that other hole is clear. So I'm going to pick up a Superduo, an 11, an 8, and an 11. And now I'm going to sew back through the other hole of the Superduo. And down into the next 8. And out through that same 8, just like you'd been doing, like a brick stitch. And you're going to snug that up. And I want you to look to see how the 8 is kind of skewed. You're just going to nudge it with your finger to sit nice and straight off your hoop, like that. Now we're just going to string a single 11, just like we did in the beginning. I'm coming out of 1 8. I have my 11. I'm going to sew down behind the hoop and add that 11 and come back out that same 11 that I just went through. And we have that. So we're going to continue to do that until we have 3 sets of these with an 11 in between. The next part of it is the 3 duos. So we're going to have these graduated rays coming out. So we have 3 Superduos, 5 Superduos, 3 Superduos, and then the little sets. So here's what you want to pay attention to. Coming out of the 8, you're going to string a Superduo and 11, a Superduo and 11, and a Superduo. They're going to sit like this. Now we're going to pick up that grouping of the 11, 8, and 11. 11, 8, 11. And we're going to come back through the hole of the last 11 that we added, and then add an 11, go through the Superduo, 11, and go through the Superduo. So here's how that works. I'm going to turn it around and hold them so I can see what I'm doing. So we're going to do this first. And I think you can see this too. So we have that grouping, and once I snug it up, I'll straighten that 8 out at the top. And we need an 11 in between each of the Superduos in the rays. So there's an 11 and another 11. So we have that ray. Now, it's attached to 1 8. You're going to go and behind the hoop through the next 8 going around, and then come back with your needle over the hoop and go through that 8 again. And you're going to snug that up and kind of nudge that bead to behave so it stands like that. Now, between each of these groups, we have the 11s. So I'm going to pick up another 11 and sew down behind the hoop through the next 8. So the 11 sits where it's supposed to, then come in front of the hoop and go back up through that 8. So we have that little 11 right there. Now we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to have 5 Superduos. So we're going to have a Superduo 11, Superduo 11, Superduo 11, Superduo 11, and the 5th Superduo is where we add our little grouping on the top. So once again, I'm going to hold this, and you can see where I'm using my fingers to hold it so that I can see what I'm doing. Pick up an 11, an 8, and an 11. Go back through that first Superduo. Then we're going to sew through the Superduos, adding 11s through each one. 11 through the next Superduo. Now I'm using galvanized silver 11s, matte black 8s, and matte red Superduos. I personally like really playing the matte surfaces off the shiny surfaces. So you've got the galvanized seed beads and you've got the shiny silver hoop against the matte black, and it just makes for some drama. So here's the last 11, and just like we did with the first groupings, we're going to pull that snug, nudge that 8 to stand up, and now we're going to go down behind the hoop through the 8, the next 8 around. Get in there. There we go. And come back up through the 8 and snug that up so they really stand out nice like rays. Pick up an 11. We're going to put the 11 in between before we continue and add the next trio to mimic the first one that we did. Now remember, when you come back out the 8s, don't go through the 11s again. You're just going through the 8s once you add it. All right, so we're going to do this, and now we're going to repeat exactly what we did on the first side by adding your ray of 3 Superduos, then your 3 single Superduos, and then the 6 11s. So that will bring us all the way back to the beginning. All right, here's my tail. And again, it does not matter which way this is facing. The back of the housing can be up, the front of the housing can be up. You can turn these any way that you need to be able to get your needle through in the most convenient way for you. All right, now to end it, this is why we left that tail here. We're going to add our last 11 on this side. That's this 6th one. And I'm going to go down through here. And now I'm going to tie this. I didn't come back out, I'm going to tie this to the tail, the working thread to the tail, in a square knot. These are not weight supporting. There you go. So I'm just going to tie a square knot right there on the hoop with my tail and my working thread. And the final step is, since this is already threaded on a needle, backtrack through the existing thread path. So you're going to go up through the 8. This time you're going to go through the 11. And you're going to go down and around the hoop. And the thread will start to feel a little snug. But what happens next is when you come back through the second or third one, you don't want to do it on the first one. You come back down here, loop through the threads that are around the hoop, if you can. There we go. And that's not going to work. All right. Actually, this can now be trimmed. And I'm going to take this close to the end with my thread zap. So what I do is I usually pull my thread as perpendicular to my work as I can, so I can really see where it comes in and just touch my thread zap to it. And I will go back and trim. Now you're going to thread your tail on a needle and do the same thing. And the last final steps are, take your earring, your ear wire, and you're going to thread it through the top hoop. I'll get this out of the way for now. Perpendicular. There we go. Now for your charm, depending on how long you want your dangle to be, you can open a jump ring and attach it just to the inner loop, or like I did in my original, I made it hang a little longer by attaching a second jump ring to it. Now you can, of course, you can put charms, you can put teardrops, you could add another little configuration of Superduos if you want, whatever floats your boat. And these are my Astra earrings. Leslie posted another link to the pattern. They're free, the tutorial, with 1 page of text, 1 page of illustrations. You can see exactly what I was talking about here. The 2 loops in the housing, how to do a basic brick stitch. What do you think, you guys? It's a real stash buster. You saw that once I did this, I couldn't stop, and I just had to keep combining. Now I only use 2 colors, the black and the red, with the silver, but you can see how you can play around with the colors of the Superduos and try different color theories. Instead of using black, using pearly beads or silver beads or something. It would be really fun if you came back to the inspiration to the Beadsmith page and posted some of the things that you tried with these hoop earrings. So I'm glad you like the colors. It's a really fun thing. Gift giving season is upon us, and these do make up really fast. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, you can find the hoops, the Superduos, charms, seed beads, thread, everything, all these and other quality Beadsmith beads, tools, and supplies from your favorite bead reseller. So for the Beadsmith and Team Leslie, I'm Leslie Rogowski saying happy, merry, but we'll see you before then. We love beads. See ya.